You wake up anxious. Check your phone before your feet hit the floor. Someone said something annoying yesterday and you're still replaying it. Your mood is controlled by notifications, other people's opinions, and problems you can't solve before 8 a.m. Meanwhile, Marcus Aurelius ran the largest empire in human history. Constant wars on 3 borders. Political betrayal from inside his own court. A plague killing 5 million people across his territory. He didn't spiral. He didn't freeze. He didn't complain. He wrote philosophy in his personal journal every morning before commanding armies. Same 24 hours as you. Same human brain. Same capacity for fear and anxiety and resentment. The difference is a mental operating system so powerful that the most successful people in the modern world have quietly rebuilt their entire psychology around it. Tim Ferriss, Ryan Holiday, Nassim Taleb, Naval Ravikant. They all credit the same ancient framework. It's called Stoicism, and it has nothing to do with being emotionless, everything to do with being unbreakable. I'm about to show you exactly how it works. By the end of this, nothing outside you will control what happens inside you. Chapter 1. The one question. Here's the mistake that makes most people miserable. Spending mental energy on the wrong category of problem. The Stoics divided all of reality into 2 categories. Things inside your control, things outside your control. That division sounds simple, almost insultingly simple. It isn't. Executing it correctly is one of the hardest cognitive disciplines a human being can develop. Epictetus was born a slave in ancient Rome, physically disabled. No rights, no freedom, no resources. He became the most influential philosopher of his era. His entire framework rested on one observation. Men are disturbed not by the things that happen, but by their opinions about those things. The event isn't the problem. Your interpretation of the event is the problem, and your interpretation is inside your control. Always. Even when nothing else is. Modern psychology caught up to this in the 1950s. Psychologist Albert Ellis developed rational emotive behavior therapy. Same framework, different vocabulary. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is your power. Ellis proved clinically that the primary driver of anxiety and depression wasn't external circumstances. It was the automatic beliefs inserted into that space between what happened and how you responded. You can train that space, deliberately, specifically. Every time you feel a negative emotional reaction, run one question immediately. Is this inside or outside my control? If outside, release it completely. Not suppress it, not ignore it. Consciously redirect cognitive resources toward what you can actually influence. If inside, act immediately. That single question practiced daily restructures where your mental energy flows. Within weeks, your baseline anxiety drops. Not because your problems disappeared, because you stop spending energy on categories where spending energy achieves nothing. Chapter 2. The Premortem. Here's what the Stoics practice every morning that modern psychology has finally validated scientifically. They called it premeditatio malorum, premeditation of evils. Every morning before the day began, they would deliberately imagine everything that could go wrong that day. Vividly, specifically. They didn't do this to be pessimistic. They did it for 2 precise reasons. First, almost nothing that actually happens is as bad as an unprepared mind makes it feel in the moment. When you've already rehearsed the difficulty, it arrives familiar instead of catastrophic. The amygdala doesn't hijack because the threat isn't novel. You've already processed it. Second, the exercise reveals what you're actually afraid of. Most anxiety is vague, a general dread without a specific object. The moment you force yourself to name exactly what could go wrong, the vague dread crystallizes into a concrete problem. Concrete problems have solutions. Vague dread has nothing to push against. Psychologist Gabriele Oettingen at NYU spent 20 years studying this. She discovered that pure positive visualization actually decreases motivation and performance. People who only imagined success felt the reward prematurely and exerted less actual effort. But people who combined positive goals with realistic obstacle identification dramatically outperformed both groups. She called it mental contrasting. The Stoics were doing it 2,000 years earlier. Practical protocol. 2 minutes every morning. Name the one thing most likely to go wrong today. Imagine it specifically. Then ask one follow-up question. If that happens, what do you do? The answer doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to exist. A brain with a plan is a brain that doesn't panic. Hit subscribe before you forget. The next chapter is the one that changes everything permanently. Chapter 3. The Voluntary Discomfort Practice. Here's the Stoic practice that sounds insane until you understand the psychology behind it. Seneca was one of the wealthiest men in Rome, advisor to emperors, owner of multiple estates. He regularly spent days eating only bread and water, sleeping on the floor, wearing the cheapest clothing he owned, not from guilt, not from asceticism, from a precise psychological strategy. He called it practicing poverty. His reasoning was exact. I am not afraid of losing this because I have already shown myself I can live without it. Fear of loss was neutralized by voluntary experience of the loss. Modern psychology calls this response prevention and systematic desensitization. Psychologist Martin Seligman's research on learned helplessness discovered the inverse principle. Animals and humans repeatedly exposed to unavoidable discomfort develop permanent passivity. They stopped trying even when escape became possible, but animals deliberately exposed to manageable discomfort they successfully navigated developed the opposite: resilience, persistence. What Seligman called learned optimism. Discomfort you chose and survived builds confidence. Discomfort that arrives without your consent and overwhelms you builds helplessness. Same discomfort, completely different outcome based on whether you chose it. Your version. Pick one voluntary discomfort this week. Cold shower every morning. Skip one meal. No phone for one full day. Not for the health benefit, for the psychological data point. Your brain now knows you can tolerate that thing. The fear of it loses its grip. That loss of grip transfers. You become slightly harder to rattle across every domain. Repeat weekly. Escalate slowly. Within 6 months, your tolerance for discomfort has expanded so dramatically that things which previously paralyzed you register as minor inconveniences. Here's the problem, though. You can practice the control question. You can run the premortem. You can build discomfort tolerance. And you will still get pulled back into reactive misery by the one thing the Stoics identified as the primary thief of human peace: other people's opinions. Specifically, performing your life for an invisible audience that isn't watching as closely as you think and wouldn't matter as much as you feel even if they were. Psychologist Thomas Gilovich at Cornell documented this in research he called the spotlight effect. People dramatically overestimate how much others notice and remember their mistakes, appearance, and failures. The audience in your head is 5 times larger than the audience in reality. And the real audience is mostly distracted by their own spotlight effect to notice yours. Marcus Aurelius wrote this to himself privately, never to be published, never meant for anyone to read. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. He was reminding himself, not performing wisdom for admirers, reminding himself because even running an empire didn't make the lesson automatic. It required daily repetition. That's the final Stoic practice, the evening review. 3 questions before sleep. What did I do well today? Where did I fall short of my own standards? What do I do differently tomorrow? No self-punishment, no self-congratulation, clean audit, the same ruthless honesty a pilot applies to a flight log. Factual, forward-looking, repeated every single night until the examined life becomes the automatic one. To keep it simple, stupid. Run the inside-outside control question on every negative reaction. Premeditate obstacles every morning so nothing arrives as a surprise. Practice voluntary discomfort weekly to expand your tolerance permanently. And review your day every night without judgment and without mercy. You were never weak-minded. You were just never given the operating system. The Romans had it 2,000 years ago. Now you have it too, but here's the thing. Mental resilience compounds fastest when your brain is actually absorbing and retaining what you're learning. Most people consume frameworks like this and forget them within a week. That's why I made this video breaking down the exact learning system that makes everything stick the first time you encounter it. It's almost unfair. Watch it next.